the Vice Chancellor, Principal Officers of the University of Benin, Deans, Professors, academic colleagues, great student students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank the Vice Chancellor for giving me the opportunity to deliver a valedictory lecture on the eve of my retirement as Professor of Curriculum Studies from the University of Benin. In leading universities of the world, there are two well-known traditions. The tradition of an inaugural lecture and the tradition of a valedictory lecture. An inaugural lecture is organized to mark the appointment of a new professor, while a valedictory lecture is organized to mark his or her retirement. A valedictory lecture is delivered by a retiring professor to bid farewell to the academic community. And more importantly, to celebrate his or her contributions over the years to knowledge, to the university, and to the wider community. Valedictory lectures are therefore occasions for celebration and reflection. Celebration for longevity and persistence, sometimes in the face of difficulty, and reflection as an opportunity to re-examine one's thoughts on a discipline. In this regard, Mr. Bashir, I can hardly contain my joy as I deliver this valedictory lecture, which I consider as the last formal academic activity that I perform as professor of the campus. However, the tradition of organizing valedictory lectures is rarely practiced in the University of Benin. Since its inception in 1970, there have been only 2 valedictory lectures in this great university. About 12 years ago, Professor P.A. Buffett, who is there down there, of the Department of History, and International Studies, delivered the first valedictory lecture on August 10, 2006 on the topic, Before the Axe Falls, History and Humanities in a National Life. 5 years later, Professor Elsie Roberto, who's also sitting down there, of the Department of Political Science and Public Administration, delivered the second valedictory lecture on April 21st, 2011, titled Dust to Dust, History, Political Science and Public Administration in Dialectical Dilemma. Today, I stand before you as the third professor in the University of Benin to deliver a valedictory lecture. I delivered my inaugural lecture about 20 years ago. It was the 49th in the series and delivered on June 25th, 1997 to be precise. It was titled, Creating the Schools We Deserve, Reflections on Education, Pedagogy and Curriculum. Since then, much has been written about Nigerian education. Despite efforts to improve the educational system in Nigeria, about 10.5 million children are still out of school. We are not able to achieve million development goals, and we are not able to meet education for all in 2015. Youth employment is also of great concern. About 4% of young Nigerians aged 50 to 25 have no jobs. Employers continue to demand for higher order cognitive skills from the workforce. They want graduates who are creative, and who has looked to make connections, innovate, communicate, and work with others. As I prepare to formally retire from the university system, it's only proper to look back over the years to see what is missing in our educational discourse and the problems we have failed to address. The topic I've chosen for my valedictory lecture is the missing link in Nigerian education, creativity in our global society and today's school curriculum. I consider this subject as a problem of the moment, whose topicality is irresistible. As Albert Einstein, the renowned scientist and philosophers pointed out, quote, the formulation of the problem is often more essential than its solution. To raise new questions, new possibilities, to regard all questions from a new angle requires creative imagination and marks real advance in science, unquote. This is true, not only in the sciences, but also in education. Max Wertheimer, the renowned psychologist, generalized Einstein's point of view when he wrote, quote, the function of thinking is not just solving an actual problem, but discovering and going into deeper questions. Putting the productive question is often a more important, often greater achievement than the solution of a set question, unquote. What Wertheimer is describing is the finding and formulation of the problem. In this lecture, I shall try to explore new problems, raise new questions, and identify new possibilities in Nigerian education. But first, let us examine what is meant by the missing link and the main message in this lecture. The missing link as a metaphor in education, perspectives, and analysis. The concept of a missing link was first used in the biological sciences in 1859, when Charles Darwin published his book titled On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. One of the popular ideas was that a missing link connecting humans with the rest of the animal kingdom might still exist and could still be discovered. Since then, the term missing link has been used to refer to perceived gaps in human evolutionary record or to any transitional fossil finds. To think of education as an evolutionary phenomenon with gaps waiting to be discovered is one of the recent conceits in our language and thought. But there's more to the concept of education than what is now being expressed. And we need to look at metaphors and concepts of education in a more critical manner. Education is the process by which a society generates the knowledge necessary for its survival and sustenance, and transmits this from one generation to another. Education may take institutionalized and sometimes rigid forms, formal, non-formal, and informal. In the social sciences, education is frequently conceptualized in terms of socialization, growth, and development, and recognized as a means through which political, economic, and social change can be fostered. In the humanities, education is described as a process of initiation or a process of liberation. Each of these metaphors presupposes that education has a purpose and indicates what education ought to be. As the renowned philosopher R.K. Elliott has observed, quote, metaphors of education help to stimulate imagination, to arouse feelings, and to prompt action. They also help to introduce fresh perspectives, make illuminating comparisons and contrasts, unquote. While we may or may not agree on the use of metaphors of education and their meanings, there are, however, some fundamental questions we must ask. For instance, what is the purpose of formal education in Nigeria? Could there be something missing from our understanding of how to make education function in the development of society? Is there a missing link in each of the different phases of education? What knowledge and skills will enable our youths to get the most from schooling? The renowned British writer Sir Arthur Clarke reminds us that, quote, we need to educate our children for the future and not for our past, unquote. Douglas and Hebler also wrote, quote, every country in the world needs a high quality, inclusive, and equitable school system that supports young people to develop the knowledge, skills, and values to live and work in a globalized economy and to contribute responsibly, both locally and globally, unquote. Thus, we need to be clear about the purpose of education and develop in our youths core skills and competencies that relate to the world in which we live. Now, what is the message in this lecture? My message in this lecture is that our educational system needs a more creative approach to curriculum planning and a greater emphasis on creativity in our schools. John Dewey, one of the foremost curriculum theorists and philosophers of the first half of the 20th century, suggested in his seminal work on the child and the curriculum, quote, "The child and the curriculum are two limits which define the cerebral process," unquote. What emerges from Dewey's statement is that the curriculum is the link between the child and the school. The curriculum is the knowledge, skills, and values for which the school is responsible. Unfortunately, creativity is missing in our school curriculum. Few of our primary and secondary schools focus on helping children develop as creative thinkers. Much of what we do is teach for the purpose of passing examinations. While this is good in itself, as educationists, it's our job to help children and students embrace creativity. Creativity is fundamental to the teaching and learning process, and just about every element of the curriculum can be approached creatively. Creativity is considered to be an essential life skill that is to be fostered by the educational system. Michael Fulham, the renowned educationist and policy analyst, asserts that, quote, "If the main purpose of education is to make a positive difference to students' lives, promoting their creativity should be an extreme part of their formal education," unquote. Ken Robinson, a leading scholar on creativity and education, says, quote, "Creativity is as important as literacy and should be treated with the same status," unquote. But perhaps Seaman Duffy put it more succinctly when he wrote, quote, "Creativity is the ultimate of human qualities. One of the key measures of intelligence is a vital resource for the future, where students and lecturers have the freedom to be creative and to think freely." To be a creative individual, Einstein would say, is to be imaginative, according to Albert Einstein. To this end, we must develop a framework to guide how education can enable our students to acquire creativity. But what does creativity mean in our global society? Indeed, what is creativity? Creativity is a unique attribute of humans. It makes us different from computers and robots. However, human creativity is a complex phenomenon. Over the years, creativity has been studied in a variety of fields, such as psychology, anthropology, artificial intelligence, cognitive science, the arts, mathematics, the sciences, the social sciences, engineering, and technology. Creativity is an important component of the philosophy of John Dewey, Frederick Froebel, John Pestalozzi, and Maria Montessori. But what is creativity? One popular notion is that creativity is a thinking process, and some scholars have prepared the term creative thinking rather than creativity. Creative thinking enables students to apply their imagination, to generate ideas, to suggest hypotheses, experiment with alternatives, and evaluate their own and their peers' ideas, final products, and processes. But creativity is not synonymous with innovation. Creativity is the creation of new and useful ideas in any discipline, while innovation is the successful implementation of the creative ideas. Most theorists agree that the creative process involves a number of components, which include 1. Imagination, the ability to form a mental image of something not present to the senses. 2. Originality, the ability to come up with ideas and products that are new and unusual. 3, productivity, the ability to generate a variety of different ideas through divergent thinking. 4, problem solving, application of knowledge and imagination to a given situation. And 5, the ability to produce an outcome of value and worth. Sharp, 2004. Some scholars have made some conceptual distinction between ordinary creativity and extraordinary creativity. Ordinary creativity is the kind of creativity which is developed in everyday settings. Extraordinary creativity involves the production of new knowledge, which has a major impact on an existing area of knowledge, the boundaries of which are monitored by experts within the field. Creativity occurs in several domains: the school system, the home, the workplace, the creative industries, and the wider society. There are 13 subsectors under the 10 creative industries, and these are advertising, architecture, the art and antiques, crafts, design, designer fashion or fashion design, film and video, interactive visual software, music, performing arts, publishing, software and computer games, television and radio. These are what constitute the creative industries. But the teaching of creativity is not only needed to produce the next generation of designers, artists and musicians. Creative thinking is vital in all kinds of professions. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, mathematicians, scientists, lecturers, researchers, and teachers all need to be creative. Creativity in the school system is regarded as ordinary creativity or everyday creativity. The assumption here is that the ordinary person can be creative. Creativity can also be taught directly. A report by the British National Advisory Committee on Creative and Cultural Education made a clear distinction between teaching creatively and teaching for creativity. Teaching creatively is teachers using imaginative approaches to make learning more interesting and effective. Teaching for creativity is forms of teaching that are intended to develop young people's own creative thinking or behavior. Creative thinking can be fostered and demonstrated in all school subjects and curriculum areas. Creativity is not subject specific, although it is manifest distinctly in different subjects. A number of countries have placed a new emphasis on the importance of developing creativity within school curriculum. In Asia, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan are notable examples. In Europe, Britain, Germany, Sweden, and Netherlands, and Finland are good examples. In North America, United States, and Canada, while in Oceania, Australia is a notable example. All these countries have fostered creativity in their school curriculum. One of the main reasons for this is the acknowledgement that creativity is essential for economic competitiveness. Some countries have also tried to nurture creativity in young people through creative partnership programs where professionals go to schools and work in partnership with teachers and students. But the question is, how does creativity affect the quality of schooling? And how does creativity affect the global ranking of universities? Let us address these two questions: creativity and the quality of schooling. For decades, educationists have been concerned with the quality of schooling in various countries of the world. One of the most interesting cross-national research is trends in international mathematics and science study, TIMSS, conducted by the International Association for Evaluation of Educational Achievement, IEA. This study gathered empirical data on students' achievement in science and mathematics from 79 countries of the world, and also provided benchmark data in a variety of aspects of schooling, including teachers, classrooms, school curricula, as well as the context in which learning takes place. The aim of this study is to allow educational systems worldwide to compare students' educational achievement and learn from the experiences of others in designing effective educational policy. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, let us take a quick look at the trend data on students' achievement in science and mathematics around the world from 1995 to 2015. The results of this study show that most of the countries that fostered creativity in their curriculum have the world's best educational systems when it comes to scoring in international assessments. Let's take a look at Table 1. Trends in international mathematics and science study, mathematics. Table 1 shows that in 2015, Singapore was the best performing country in mathematics, scoring 621, followed by South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan, Russia, Kazakhstan, Canada, Ireland, United States, and England. Now let's take a look at Table 2. Table 2. Trends in international mathematics and science study is science. Table 2 also shows that Singapore was also the best performing country in science, scoring 597, followed by Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Slovenia, Hong Kong, Russia, England, Kazakhstan, Ireland, and United States. Results of the TIMSS in the past 2 decades, 1995 to 2015, shows that Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, Japan continue to dominate the rankings for trends in international mathematics and science study. Singapore's global rankings in science and mathematics in the past 2 decades, 1995 to 2015, have made it the envy of the developed world. In Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Botswana, and South Africa were the only countries that participated in the study, scoring well below the national average. Nigeria is not a participant in this global assessment. This means that Nigeria is not yet a global player when it comes to education. Now let's deal with the second latest study, PISA. The Program for International Students Assessment, PISA, is another global assessment facilitated by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Students were assessed in science, mathematics, reading, collaborative problem solving, and financial literature. Let's take a look at Table 3, top performing countries. Table 3 shows that in 2015, top performing countries were Singapore, Japan, Estonia, Taiwan, Finland, Macau, Canada, Vietnam, Hong Kong, and China. These countries fostered creativity in their school curriculum and have the world's best educational systems. Now, having examined the role of creativity in the quality of schooling, let us examine the role of creativity in the global ranking of universities. The Times Higher Education World University Ranking 2006 to 2017, 2016-2017 lists the top 980 universities in the world. Universities were judged across their core missions: teaching, research, knowledge transfer, and international outreach. Let's take a look at Table 4. World University Ranking. Table 4 shows that the University of Oxford was ranked the best university in 2017. This was followed by California Institute of Technology, Stanford University, University of Cambridge, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Harvard University, Princeton University, Imperial College London, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology Zurich, University of California at Berkeley, and the University of Chicago. The University of Oxford also held the #1 spot in 2018. Professor Richardson, Vice Chancellor of Oxford University, University of Oxford, in a convocation speech delivered on October 4th, 2016, said, quote, "We have just been named the best university in the world. This ranking is a testimony to the caliber of our staff and the quality of research they produce, and the creativity and sheer brilliance of the work of so many of them. The talents we have, the values we share, and the commitment of working together, I'm convinced that we can remain the greatest university in the world, unquote. This means that maintaining the top position as the best university in the world comes down to recruiting academics who are creative. Professor Richardson argues that any university is only as good as the academics can attract. The key is for universities to produce an environment that fosters creativity, in which academics are valued and supported and free to set their own research agenda. Now, having established that countries that foster creativity in their curriculum have the best educational systems, let us address how one country has tried to foster creativity in its curriculum. Singapore stands out for its excellent performance in international assessments, and we shall compare this with Nigeria. Fostering creativity in today's school curriculum. Singapore. The OECD-led study of May 2015 assessed that Singapore has the world's best educational system. But what do Singaporean teachers do in classrooms that is so special? What are the particular strengths of Singapore's school curriculum that helps it to perform well? Hogan, 2014, writes that classroom instruction in Singapore is highly uniform across all levels and subjects. Teaching is coherent and pragmatic. Teaching in Singapore, primary and secondary schools, basically focuses on coverage of the curriculum contents, the transmission of factual and procedural knowledge, and preparing students for end of semester and national high-stakes examinations. Great emphasis is placed on selection and training of teachers, who are encouraged to work together and prioritize investment in teacher quality. In classrooms, there is strong emphasis on mastery of specific procedures and the ability to represent problems clearly, especially in mathematics. In 1997, Singapore launched a thinking skills program called Thinking Skills Learning Nation, which focused on key strategies such as infusion of critical and creative thinking into the school curriculum, reduction of subject content, and revision of assessments and introduction of project work. Creativity and thinking skills are viewed as essential skills for students to meet the challenges of the new millennium. By 2004-2005, Singapore's government identified a new pedagogical framework and called it Teach Less, Learn More. The goal is to give students the room to exercise initiative and shape their own learning. The students have to become engaged learners, interested and proactive in the learning process. Students are now more engaged in project work and higher order thinking to encourage creativity. There's widespread use of ICT in Singaporean schools and incorporated in all school curriculum. Over time, Singapore has developed an educational system which is coherent and well-funded. There's generous funding for research and attracts top scientists and scientific companies. Singapore's universities, and especially National University of Singapore and Nanyang Technological University, have research partnerships with leading universities around the world. Now let's take a look at our own educational system in Nigeria. In 2003, Nigeria launched the Vision 2020 as a long-term agenda aimed at becoming one of the 20 largest economies in the world by the year 2020. The National Economic Development Strategy (NEEDS) is another initiative set up by the federal government in 2003. In 2009, the Federal Ministry of Education published roadmap for the Nigerian education sector with turnaround strategies for each of the sub-sectors of education, namely early childhood, basic, post-basic, and tertiary education. In 2013, the 6th edition of the National Policy on Education was published. Although creativity is officially recognized as one of the objectives in the early child care development, 0 to 4 years, and 1 year pre-primary education, it is yet to foster creativity in this curriculum. At the primary, junior secondary, and senior secondary levels, creativity is not mentioned or even recognized. The primary school curriculum is discipline-based and addresses the goals of primary education, namely to inculcate permanent literacy and numeracy, and develop the ability to communicate. Although the national policy on education recognizes cultural and creative arts as core subjects at both primary and junior secondary levels, creative art practices in our secondary schools is presently relegated to the background. The senior secondary school curriculum consists of fields of studies designed to broaden students' knowledge and outlook. Students are required to offer 4 composite subjects: English language, general mathematics, trade, entrepreneurship subjects, and civic education. Students are also required to choose 1 or 2 subjects from fields of studies such as science, mathematics, technology, humanities, and business studies. However, it is not enough to focus on these fields of studies as the source of creativity in education. There should be a wider role for creativity in our senior secondary school curriculum. At the tertiary level, creativity is not regarded as one of its goals. Creativity is absent in course outlines, course descriptions, and assessments. The types of assessment used do not encourage creativity. Lecturers still prefer multiple choice and essay questions. Nigerian universities now have a minimum academic standards in various disciplines, designed to ensure that certain minimum level of competency is attained by graduates in any particular discipline at the end of their training. In spite of the minimum academic standards, the report of the NIST Assessment Survey of the Nigerian education sector, published in May 2014, shows the current state of our universities. The majority of our universities are grossly understaffed, unable to foster creativity and to compete favorably with universities in many other parts of the world. Only about 43% of teaching staff have doctorate degrees. The ratio of teaching staff to students in many universities is 1 to 100 and above. Physical facilities for teaching and learning in public universities are inadequate, dilapidated, overstretched, and improvised. Laboratory and workshop equipment, as well as consumables, are either absent, inadequate, or outdated. No Nigerian university was among the first 1,000 in the world. University of Nigeria, Nsukka, which ranked first in Nigeria, was ranked 1,433. Followed by University of Ibadan, which ranked 1,613 in the world. And University of Ilorin, Covenant University, which ranked 2,114 and 2,161 in the world. The University of Benin, which ranked 15th position in Nigeria, was ranked 2,700. Our university system is performing poorly in the area of teaching and learning and creative research. This is true not only in terms of traditional quality standards employed in NUC accreditation exercises, but also in terms of labor market absorption and employers' assessment of graduates. The goal of becoming one of the top 20 economies in the world by 2020 can only be achieved if Nigeria makes the transition to a new economy based on knowledge, creativity, and innovation that enable it to become competitive in the 21st century context. The challenge of fostering creativity in Nigerian school curriculum. So far in this lecture, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I've tried to show that despite Nigeria's commitment to the promotion of a sound educational policy, creativity is missing in the school curriculum at almost every level of our educational system. Today, our primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions have failed to foster creativity in the school curriculum. In a sense, failure to foster creative thinking is part of societal failure. A society that shuns creativity and worships mediocrity and materialism. In a country where there are no jobs for the certificated, where the most affluent is the least educated, where the most venerated is the rich illiterate, where higher qualifications attract no remuneration, one should not be surprised if our schools have failed to foster creativity. But there are other factors as well well, such as the lack of instructional facilities and the massive attrition of qualified and dedicated teachers from our nation's schools because of lack of promotion incentives. The nature of the learning environment is another factor responsible for the lack of creativity in our nation's schools. In most of our schools, the basic elements of a creative learning environment are absent. The stock of teaching materials is limited, and the physical surroundings are detrimental to learning. The conditions in many schools are so chaotic that it seems miraculous that learning occurs at all. And much of what does occur appears to be haphazard than as a result of a deliberate focus on the content and process of instruction. The time available for learning is also another factor influencing the learning outcomes in our schools. In general, when teachers devote more time to learning, students learn more. In Nigeria, 2016 school year had 200 days, which was shorter than the international standard of 280 days. Considerable amount of time was lost because of unscheduled school closures, teacher strikes, and unscheduled public and religious holidays. Our schools must seek ways to improve and increase the time teachers devote to teaching and students devote to learning. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, one can go on and on this subject, but where do we go from here? It depends on what we do from now on. If we organize our schools in order to foster creativity, then we will give our schools, our country, a chance to survive. If we remain static, we shall be decaying gradually. But if we do nothing at all, then our schools will be at the verge of collapse. There is the need, therefore, to foster creativity in our school curriculum. My legacy. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, now that we have established that the need for greater emphasis on creativity in our schools, it is time to highlight my contributions to the university system, where I've spent more than half of my life, the impact I've had on other people, and what I'm leaving for humanity and for the world in particular. Looking back now on almost 40 years of my academic career, starting from Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, University of Wisconsin-Madison, State University of New York at Albany, New York, and University of Benin, I feel very fulfilled. It has been a long journey of teaching, research, scholarly interactions, lessons learned, contributions made, opportunities seized, and achievements recorded. I served in the Department of Education Psychology and Curriculum Studies from 1976 to 2015. This department was split into two departments in 2015, namely Department of Curriculum and Instructional Technology and Department of Educational Evaluation and Counseling Psychology. I was head of department from 1993 to 1995 and also acting head of Department of Adult Education and Extramural Studies from 1998 to 1990. It's not possible to estimate the number of students that went through me at all levels in these departments during the period. All I can say with humility is that some 70 to 80% of the professors in the Faculty of Education, University of Benin, were my former students. Graduates or postgraduate levels. Permit me to mention some names. Professor Yamu, who is the current was my postgraduate student. Professor Moefo was also Professor Wadiani, former Dean of Education and member of Council, was also my former student. Professor Rakwame, my head of department now. Professor Mori, Professor Luku, Professor Diado, Professor Abeku, Professor Bechuku, Professor Beku, Professor others are Dr. Fani, Dr. Abu, Diakono, Professor Osasensi, Dr. Herrera, Total, and several others. I thank you all. You have been wonderful friends. Outside the Faculty of Education, I have contributed to the training of students who are now professors and deans in other faculties. Professor Sagede, former Dean of Students, was also my former student. Professor Menikebe was also my former student. Dr. Okadike, Provost of the College of Education, Agro, was also my former student. Mr. Boite, Principal of UDSS, was also my former student. As a professor of curriculum studies, I can look back today with pride on my initiating and building up educational programs in the department into a full-blown, academically strong department. I feel proud that together with my colleagues, such as Professor Moge, Professor Moifo, Professor Yamu, Dr. Eweka, late Professor Ndukauko, Professor Debomi, Professor Badmus, who was my teacher, we have laid a solid foundation on which my colleagues have built and are still building. I feel proud that the postgraduate programs which we have developed have blossomed into an expanded program of postgraduate studies and has won the respect and patronage of our academic colleagues from other universities. Good number of our masters and PhD graduates now in employment at the Delta State University, Abraka, and Musali University, Ekoma, Labisi Onomajo University, Ogun State, College of Education, Ondo, and College of Education at Agbo, Ikadolo, Wari, Asaba, and Igwebe reinforce the claim that the Department of Curriculum and Instructional Technology has come of age. Tributes. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I cannot end this valedictory lecture without paying tribute to all those who have contributed to making me what I am today. First, I would like to thank the Almighty God for His goodness and for sparing my life in this moment. Otherwise, this valedictory lecture would not have been possible. I remain grateful to the University of Benin, where I have lived my adult life in the past 40 years. My life in the University of Benin has been fruitful. I'm grateful for the training leave I received, the general sabbatical leave I was granted, and the facilities placed at my disposal in my arduous but eventful journey in academics. I must thank very sincerely Professor Adamu Beki, who as the Dean of Education at Ahmadu Bello University recommended me as the best graduating student during my undergraduate training, for which I was awarded a university scholarship. Professor Adamu Beki eventually became the third Vice Chancellor in the University of Benin. He again granted me a training leave to pursue my PhD program at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, USA. I'm deeply grateful to him. I must equally thank Professor Grace Alile Williams, who as Vice Chancellor acknowledged my efforts when I published my first book, Curriculum Studies by Longman London, and went on to mention my name in her first convocation speech. This was a huge source of encouragement in my academic career. I must thank very sincerely Professor Andrew Omekerani, who as Vice Chancellor announced my promotion to the rank of Professor of Curriculum Studies and for giving me the opportunity to deliver my inaugural lecture. I also want to give my sincere thanks to Professor Ariel Nao, Professor E.A.C. Wenze, Professor Gio Shodi, whose tenures as Vice Chancellors also provided a congenial atmosphere for reflective thinking to pursue academic research. And to Professor Onuwese for graciously allowing me to give the third valedictory lecture. I would like to acknowledge the contributions of various people and institutions towards making my academic career in this university very fulfilling. I'm deeply indebted to members of my faculty for their support at all times. I cannot afford to note everyone by name, but all of you are close to my heart. Yet, let me mention the senior ones. Notably, Professor Aduwa Ogbebai, Professor Wambu, Professor Wandiani, Professor Weir, Professor Jeme, Professor Salami, Professor Sunde, Professor Lutu, Professor Bochuku, Professor Mbo, Professor Adeyemi, Professor Gono, Professor Fuegu, Professor Ibadi, Professor Waifo, Professor Nugu, Professor Kazim, Professor Jogu, Professor Kubon, Professor Mori, Professor Musa, Professor Fedili, Professor Edo, Professor Dehe, Professor Minu, Professor Diado, Professor Peyon, Professor Kaviomo, Professor Benedict, Professor Agbeku, Professor Sage, Professor Morugiwa. I thank you all. I also wish to thank the Fulbright program in the United States under the Council for International Exchange of Scholars for giving me the privilege of spending my sabbatical leave as a visiting Fulbright scholar at the State University of New York at Albany, New York from 1987 to 1988. I want to pay special tribute to my wife. Mrs. Juliet Reu, the most gifted and the most influential teacher. 40 years of sharing life together, there's hardly been a day when I have not learned from her lessons about how to love and how to give of oneself. Which is to say, how to live as a sensitive and caring human being. Drawing upon our experience as proprietors of 3 schools, University Preparatory Secondary School, Children's Academy, Nursery and Primary, and Children's Academy Montessori, and my expertise as teacher and administrator, she profoundly influenced the shape of my academic career. This valedictory lecture is hers as well as mine. And understanding are more helpful than my children and grandchildren, Efe, Tega, Joan, Susan, Ejite, and in-laws, Priscilla, Kelly, and Uche. They have been a source of inspiration and joy, supplying countless anecdotes and insights that have made my 40 years in academia fruitful. And to everyone present here this evening, I'm extremely grateful. Now, conclusion. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, let me conclude by going back to the point with which I started in order to state in explicit terms what is missing in our educational discourse. In today's lecture, I've made the point that creativity is missing in our educational system. While creativity can be taught directly, educational practice can provide the means and a fertile environment for a creative mind to flourish. Like a farmer sowing seeds, the teacher creates conditions for children to grow and create as creative and critical thinkers. In principle, everyone can become creative. Creativity can be promoted through all school subjects. Learning environments can create and offer multiple opportunities to reflect creatively. And all teachers, like all people, can be creative in their teaching practice. The fostering of creative thinking is not always easy, and some advice from research, experience, or guidelines from successful practice may be necessary. As Carl Sagan, the world-renowned astronomer, once said, we can judge the meaning of our lives by the courage of our questions and the depth of our answers, and the necessity of caring for one another. Indeed, our efforts to foster creativity in our schools will depend on the quality of our ideas, for ideas ultimately determine policy and actions. Ideas must be judged by the policy and actions that they inspire. Policies and actions must be judged by the results, and results finally must be judged by ideas. In the end, we must judge our schools whether they have fulfilled their missions as educational institutions, whether they have tried to prepare our children to think and act creatively. Given the limitations of human nature, we know that our ideals will never be entirely achieved. But we may justly ask whether our schools have tried to put into practice these aims and aspirations, and we may judge them harshly if they did not make any effort. The quality of our schools will reflect the degree of private and public interest and support invested in them. And whatever happens in the future, we expect to have the schools of our dream, schools that promote creativity. Thank you and God bless.
You will agree with me that Professor Andrew Urebu deserves a standing ovation. Please let's put it together again. You may be seated, thank you. Professor Urebu, like you have clearly seen, is a professor of professors. His students have become deans, directors, professors, and he is indeed blessed.
Excuse me,